You have a memory of your fifth birthday, maybe the cake, maybe the candles, maybe a specific gift you unwrapped with shaking hands. But you have no memory of learning to walk, none of learning to talk, none of the thousands of hours you spent staring at your mother's face, memorizing it before you even knew what a face was. Somewhere between 0 and 3 years old, an entire person was built inside your skull and you weren't invited to remember any of it. This is strange. Think about it. You were awake, you were aware, you were forming opinions about the world before you could even speak them. And yet, if someone asked you to describe a single afternoon from when you were 2 years old, you would come up empty. Not blurry, not distant, empty. Scientists call this infantile amnesia, and for a long time, they assumed it happened because babies simply weren't building memories yet. Their brains were too undercooked, too raw, not ready for the job. That assumption turned out to be wrong. In the 1980s, developmental psychologist Carolyn Rovi Collier ran an experiment that changed everything. She tied a ribbon from an infant's ankle to a mobile hanging above the crib. The babies quickly learned that kicking made the mobile move. They loved it. They kicked and kicked, delighted by their own power over the world. Then Rovi Collier waited. Days, sometimes weeks. When she brought the babies back and reattached the ribbon, they remembered. They started kicking again almost immediately, as if no time had passed at all. So the memories were there. The infants had learned. They had stored something. The problem wasn't that babies couldn't remember. The problem was that adults couldn't retrieve what babies had stored. Why? Here's where it gets strange. Your hippocampus, the part of your brain responsible for stitching together memories into coherent, retrievable stories, is still under construction for the first several years of your life. It's not offline, it's not asleep, it's just incomplete, like a library being built while people are still trying to check out books. Neurons are being born in your hippocampus at an explosive rate during early childhood, a process called neurogenesis. And here's the twist, that explosive growth might actually be part of the problem. Neuroscientist Paul Franklin studies this exact puzzle in mice. His research suggests that rapid neurogenesis in early life may actually overwrite or destabilize existing memory circuits before they can be locked into long-term storage. In other words, your brain was growing so fast, so aggressively, that it may have been erasing its own rough drafts as quickly as it wrote them. Imagine trying to keep a journal while someone kept ripping out yesterday's pages to make room for today's. There's another piece of the puzzle, language. You didn't have much of it yet. Memory, especially the kind you can later describe in words, relies heavily on narrative structure. A beginning, a middle, an end, a sense of self as the main character walking through time. Psychologist Catherine Nelson has argued that autobiographical memory depends on a child developing a self-concept sturdy enough to be the hero of their own story. Before that self fully forms, around age 3 or 4, experiences may register, but they don't get filed under things that happened to me, they just happen. Then they dissolve. So the memories weren't necessarily deleted, they may have been formed without a folder to live in. This reframes the whole mystery. You weren't a blank slate as a baby, you were a furious, overheating engine of learning, absorbing language, faces, danger, safety, love, at a rate you will never again match for the rest of your life. Your brain during those years wasn't failing to remember. It was too busy building the machinery that would let you remember anything at all, ever again. There's a strange comfort in that, if you sit with it. The reason you can't remember your first steps isn't because nothing important happened. It's because everything important happened. So much was happening, so fast, that the recording equipment was still being assembled in real time. And this isn't just a curiosity about childhood, it says something about how memory works right now, in your adult brain, today. Every time you learn something completely new, something that doesn't connect to anything you already know, it's harder to hold on to. Memory isn't a camera. It doesn't capture a perfect copy of reality and file it away untouched. Memory is a construction project. It needs scaffolding. It needs a self to attach itself to. It needs language, context, and a story it can be part of. This is why you remember your first heartbreak in painful detail but forget entire ordinary weeks of your adult life. The heartbreak had a story. It had a you at the center of it, changing, learning, hurting. The ordinary week didn't. It just happened the way your second birthday just happened. Unrecorded, unfiled, gone. There's also a darker implication buried in this research. If your earliest memories can be formed and then quietly overwritten by your own growing brain, how reliable is any memory? Psychologist Elizabeth Loftus spent decades studying how easily memories, even vivid, emotional ones from adulthood, can be distorted, reshaped, or in some cases entirely invented through suggestion. Her research on false memories showed that people could be convinced they remembered events that never happened at all, complete with sensory details they swore were real. If memory can be built without a folder in infancy and reshaped without your consent in adulthood, then the story you tell about your own life is less like a recording and more like a living document, edited quietly, again and again, without your permission. That should make you a little suspicious of your own certainty. Not paranoid, just humble. Here's the modern mirror. You scroll through old photos sometimes and don't recognize the moment at all, even though you know logically that you were there. That gap between I was physically present and I have no internal memory of this isn't a malfunction. It's the same gap that existed when you were 2 years old, staring up at a mobile, kicking a ribbon tied to your ankle, learning cause and effect for the very first time, before you had any self to store the lesson under. You didn't lose your first 3 years of life. You spent them building the person who would eventually be capable of losing things at all. The blank space at the start of your memory isn't empty because nothing was there. It's blank because you were the thing being built.